Welcome to another edition of African Americans Ain't African, the thought think show that proves without a shadow of a doubt that the so-called African American didn't come to America in the trunk of a ship. I'm your host, the Indigenous One. And tonight you're going to meet the descendant of King Philip, of the King Philip's War. So please, any questions? Still haven't got the phone hooked up, so any questions you have, please send them through the chat and we'll make sure the chief gets them. We're joined by Chief Sagamore tonight. He's going to give you some information on his people and where he comes from and what he does, and hopefully he can lend some information to the listeners out there that can help them out along their journey. Chief Sagamore, how you doing?
I'm doing pretty good. How you doing tonight?
I'm doing, brother. Thank you. I appreciate you for joining us. If you can, could you tell the audience a little bit about yourself and what we'll be talking about and what you'll be sharing tonight?
Yes, my name is Po Wapiniapog, and I am the Sagamore of the Pokanoket tribe of the Pokanoket Nation. Actually, it's the full title is the Council 7 Royal House Pokanoket Tribe Pokanoket Nation. I am a direct descendant of the Massasoit Osamequin, who welcomed the Pilgrim to this country. Massasoit is a title. It means great leader. His name was Osamequin, yellow feather in our language. And he was the great leader of the largest Indian nation in colonial America. There were over 60 tribes, bands, and clans in that nation. And I am 10th generation great-grandson of Osamequin.
What is that?
Better?
That's much better.
Okay. Osamequin was the one that welcomed the Pilgrim to these shores and signed the peace treaty at 54 years. And it wasn't until his son, Paul Metacom, or you know him historically as King Phillip, became the Massasoit that he went to war. And the reason he went to war was that he was going to take back everything that they took from his father. So we didn't sell them the land. They sort of took the land. They got greedy. And basically, that King Philip is my 9th generation great-grandfather. And then I have a 6th generation great-grandfather who's the great-grandson of King Philip, or Paul Metacom, who was the same person. His name was Simeon Simon. And Simeon Simon was George Washington's hand-picked bodyguard. And he handpicked him when he came to Packchaw, Connecticut, to take over the revolutionary forces. Simeon Simon was out there wrestling with all his men. He called them in. He wanted to know who he was because the Indians were bigger than the English. And he was pinning all his men, and he wanted to know who he was. And he bowed low and he said, you know, my line is closed book. He couldn't talk about it because he was Pokanoket. And during the King Philip War, the word Pokanoket was outlawed, and they start calling us Wampanoag. And so basically, if you were a male 40 years of age or older, and you said you were Pokanoket, they could kill you on sight. So the word was actually trying to be expunged from the English dictionary. However, we are still here. We're alive and well. You'll find a lot of tribes up here that use the term Wampanoag, but in the year 2015, I believe it was 2015, we took back our original title of Pokanoket Nation. And Simeon Simon was, as I was saying, he was a Continental soldier, he received a pension from the United States government. And a Continental soldier received a higher pension than a regular army. He served with George Washington, and then after the war, he went to live with George Washington for 2 years before returning back to Connecticut. Now, Simeon, this is a portrait of Simeon Simon, and I don't know if you can see this, but this portrait hangs in the Griswold Town Hall, and this is the portrait of George Washington and Simeon Simon. And he is also on the bicentennial coin of the town of Griswold, Connecticut. And That was
It sounds like you got some
17.
feedback coming. Are you guys got two speakers on? Because you're talking and you got the picture up, but it's coming through the other speaker and it's.
Are your speakers over here on?
This is off. This phone is off, right?
That's yeah, that should be off.
I hear something. Man. I don't know. Is this fine?
How's that?
How's that?
That's better. But I just so when you're showing the picture, it's showing two hawks. Two hawks. If you can turn your speaker down, to sound like it's coming through two speakers.
Oh, this is the picture right here. You can't see the picture. This portrait hangs in the Griswold Town Hall.
Could you put it up again, please?
I got it up right now. Can you see it?
Yes.
This portrait hangs in the Griswold Town Hall, Griswold, Connecticut. And I also
Hold on, Chief. That's a lot of echo. I'm gonna sit out on the porch here, Chief.
Huh?
On the porch.
Go in the other room there, in the kitchen.
I mean, if you guys could share one computer, that'd be cool.
Yeah, we can share one computer. Okay. We'll share the one computer. That sounds like a plan to me. All right, let me turn this back up. All right, can you hear me now?
I can hear you fine.
All right. Now this here, I don't know if you can see this here. This here is the I'm showing it, but I don't see it. Maybe Tuhawk can get over here and hone in on this here. But this here is the official bicentennial coin of the town of Griswold, Connecticut. And you see two gentlemen riding horseback, and underneath those gentlemen, you'll see the names George Washington and Simeon Simon. That's my 6th generation great grandfather. And on the other side is the seal of the town of Griswold, Connecticut. This is the official bicentennial coin of the town of Griswold, Connecticut. I don't know if you can see that. Can you see it?
I can see it fine.
Good. And so just to let you know that, Simeon Simon, in some places you would see him as Indian. You could see him as white. You could see him as black. But the bottom line is, this is straight out of the Rhode Island Archives Society department. It says that he was a full-blooded Wampanoag Indian. Okay, and this is something that they did with our people. And then, of course, being a revolutionary soldier from the borders of the American Revolution, they'll tell you the same thing. He was a full-blooded Wampanoag Indian. He couldn't be called Pokanoket because it was illegal. And that happened in 1675, 1676, during the King Phillip War, that they outlawed the word Pokanoket. So when I came up as a kid in the 40s, it wasn't fashionable to be Indian, but people knew my family. I come from Providence, Rhode Island, and this was before the civil rights movement or the freedom ridings that came down in the 60s. Everybody knew everyone in Rhode Island. I mean, it's a small state. And of course, I never had to go around and tell people that I was Indian. They referred to my family as the real Indians. All right, they had tribes here, but we were known as the real Indians in the city, in the capital city of Rhode Island. And so basically, a lot of things that I took for granted. I was brought up at the powwows. I went to the powwows, but I never participated in them as a child. My older brother, my older sister, my younger sister, they all participated. I was there. And then as I grew older, I come to realize things that, that I didn't understand when I was young, because I just myself, I knew that I was Indian, but a lot of the people that I went to church with were Indian, but I didn't know this, because there are a lot of stereotypes, well, what does an Indian look like, so forth, so on. And so people, but I knew that a lot of the people that I went to church with, they didn't look African. And so basically, that was a game that they used to take in mislabel and, falsify the documents, and we've been through many stages of color and Negro, and then black, and then Afro-American. I mean, it's enough to confuse anyone. And the other term they would use for an Indian is mulatto. So, I mean, when you see some of those terms, that there's a good chance that you think that you're Indian, or people in your family have told you were Indian, then you were probably Indian, you know? And but you know, you if you're looking for the stereotype, what you see out there at the Western reservations, yeah, they're on the reservations, they all look the same. Up here in the Northeast corridor, the Indians were Indians of color. And we had our genealogy was verified by the Mayflower Society, and they have the history the same way we had it through oration, because we weren't writing back then in the 1600s. And basically, they said that, yeah, the Indians up here of that tribe they were color, Indians of color. So, and they weren't Redskins. So basically, you know, when you come up and you know because your parents made it perfectly clear to you, or crystal clear to you, who you were, and this is what you need to know. You need to know who you are. And once you find out and know who you are, then you'll have a purpose to pursue the things that are rightfully yours, because there are a lot of takeaways that happen in this country. And basically, that's what we're doing through FANA. We're using their laws to get our rights. And we were just ignorant of the fact coming up, because we thought that you had to be federally recognized, but that's not true. And a lot of tribes and a lot of government officials, they think federal recognition is where it's at. Federal recognition is not where it's at, because what they're doing with federal recognition is they're taking away your Aboriginal rights, and they're making you a citizen just like any other citizen in the United States. And so basically, and they call you Native American, and if you're born in this country, then you're a Native American. You don't have to be Indian to be a Native American. You just have to be born in this country. So when we looked at the laws, and we found that the provisions were there all along for us. They were in the Constitution. And anytime they spoke about our people, they spoke about the original inhabitants of the land, or the American Aborigine, or the American Indian. And so basically, if you stop and think about it, when these laws were written, there weren't any federally recognized tribes. You know what I'm saying? So these laws were made for the American Aborigine, and what they've done is taken away your culture, taken away your language, your identity. So you have to take and research it. And like I say, I didn't have to do this because they knew who my family was. I also, now that's on my mother's side, that I come directly from the Massasoit, and then King Phillip, or Paul Metacom, and then Simeon Simons, who was King Philip's great-grandson. But on my father's side, I discovered that he come from the same tribe as I, did the research, because I always went along with my mother's side, because my father, he knew that he was Indian, and his mother was living up until the 1960s. I'm married in 1963, so I'm a little, I've been around a while, let's put it that way. And so basically, my grandmother used to say that, she came from Anawan's line. Well, Anawan was the head Painisi warrior for the Massasoit Osamequin. And then he was the head Painisi warrior for his son, King Phillip. And that was King Philip's uncle. His name was Anawan. Anawan was married to the Massasoit sister. So my father and my mother come from royalty, or notable descendants. And so, as I was saying, Anawan, through my great grandmother's line, Mary Claiborne was the great granddaughter of Anawan. And so this is how my father's mother's line come down. And she always said that she came from Anawan's line, and she came from Anawan's rock. And my wife has heard this with her own ears after I was married. And basically, the town of Seekonk, where she lived, where my grandmother's homestead was, Chestnut Street in Seekonk, there were 3 Indian villages. And so, of which my grandmother's people were on this lands. And the town of Seekonk incorporated in 1812. They knew that they were the remains of the Anawan captives from the King Phillip War. They couldn't call them Pokanoket, so they called them Seekonk. And to this day, they're known as the Seekonk Indians. And basically, they know that they're Pokanoket, but this is my grandmother's line. So my grandmother on my father's side and my grandfather and grandmother on my mother's side come from the same tribe. And so now here's the kicker, because I understand that you come from Virginia. My father. Oh, this is that's Mr. Davis. Oh, it's Mr. Davis. Okay, but Tomahawk's online.
I think he's listening.
Oh, he's listening. Well, I just want to tell him that my grandfather come from Virginia. My father's father, he's a Nottoway Indian from Nottoway County. I think it was Blendon, Virginia, or Crew, Virginia, in that area. And he came up here because of the hardships that were placed on the Indians, in the 1920s, I guess he came up here. And of course, they didn't know that he was Indian, but he was an engineer for the city. He was able to get that job, which he couldn't get down south because they knew he was Indian. All right. And so he put in all these streets on. They thought he was white. And when I went to work for the New England Electric Company, all the engineers knew my grandfather. He put in all the streets over there. And so basically, he came down here so that he could, better opportunities for his family and whatnot. And so did his cousin. So he came down here and he married, he sought out his own kind, and he married a Pokanoket, who was my grandmother. So my father's father comes from the Nottoway tribe, and my father's mother comes from the Pokanoket tribe. So they sought out their own kind in those days. And basically, the family, the only way they could assimilate back then was in the church. So my grandmother's people put all their nickels and dimes together and built the Methodist church so they could take and come together as a people. All right. And I discovered also that my mother's line, the Whedon-Simon line, they were very involved in the church, because this is the only way that the Indians could conjugate together. And so consequently, my grandfather on my mother's side was a deacon in this church, and my grandmother was a deaconess. And this church is Pond Street Church, was where the Algonquin Indian Council was started. And it was started there because of my grandfather. And my great uncle Fred, who died in the 20s, was the treasurer of that Algonquin Indian Council. And so when I tell you that I didn't have to do a lot of work about my family, because they wrote about my family, and so I sort of probably been lackadaisical in that regards. But just to give you an example, this is my great uncle Fred. I'm gonna put this picture up there just so you can see that this was in the main paper up here. I want them to see that there where they say that he was a scion of the Massasoit. So he was of notable descendancy. All right. And, I mean, I didn't write this stuff. And if you look at him, you can see he was Indian color.
Yes.
So basically, you need to take and research and know who you are. But a lot of things that were done through the church back then, because that's the only place that the Indians could kick and come together.
I had mentioned to Mr. Davis before, I believe it was correct, they were actually building a lot of the churches on the places where the longhouses had been before they got colonized.
Right.
So a lot of the churches where you see like the old Methodist ones, the AMEs and all that, they're actually in the locations where the tribal longhouses used to be, and they were using the churches as the new longhouses.
What about the churches that say they're primitive churches? What about those?
Primitive churches.
Because down here in the South, if you go back into the places that are not the city, you have primitive churches. They're all over the place.
Yeah.
Hey, I mean, is it people that look like us?
I'm sorry.
Are the membership like people that look like us?
Yeah, everybody does. But they just call, like, they have Methodists and Baptists, but the oldest churches you find down here, they're called primitive Baptist churches or primitive Methodist churches.
Right? I'd be willing to bet that those are the old Indian churches that they started.
Yes.
So basically, if you're trying to trace your heritage and you know that you come from that town and your family were members of the church, that'd be a good place to look for, history of your people or your family. Another good place to look would be the Mormon church, town halls. They have records of, who was who. And, these are some of the places to start looking. But until you find out who you are, you really don't have a purpose in life. You need to know who you are. You know what I'm saying? And then you'll have purpose because you'll be pursuing things that that are there for you that you should have had. And this is what we're doing through fauna. But we're using their laws. It's a process. It's a process that we're going through. I mean, we've chartered fauna. We've letters of appointment to the executive council. We've gone through the whole ball of wax. I mean, we've chartered our, disclosure agreements, constitution, you're putting all this together. But basically what we want to do is help people that are of American Indian descent to help them, to get their rights. And so what we found is that we come under the Constitution of the United States of America for the common law. And the common law is the original Constitution. We're not talking about the commercial law of the Constitution for the United States. We're talking about the Constitution of the United States of America. And we come under Article 3. And basically, if you're a Native American, you don't come under Article 3. You come under Article 4, I think it is. Pardon? Article 4 and Article 2. And basically, under those articles, you go to court just like any other citizen in the United States. We go to court, we use our traditional names, and we come under the common law, and basically it's a whole different aspect that we're facing. We'll sit before 3 judges, and a lot of things that we do is through equity law. And so it's been quite a journey, but like I say, we're learning as we go, and we've have 11 nations now in our in fauna, and we just signed a treaty with the King of Polynesian and the King of Hawaii. Is the same person, and there's 16 nations there, so it's a nation-to-nation treaty. Basically, it's going to be quite a thing when all of the Aboriginal or the original inhabitants of this country come back together as one force. And so this is what we're doing, and we found that basically the laws that were there we were unaware of. When we pursue these things, they don't fight us on it because they wrote the laws. And we usually just giving them, what was there for us. And so the provisions were made there, but we were just ignorant of the fact. And so the more we learned, the more we are able to pursue our goals. And so I guess I'll stop there. I mean, I don't know if you have any questions, but it's been a process, so believe me. And, the biggest obstruction that we face is denial by delay. I mean, we've sent out more certified letters, the judges and the powers to be, the governor and president of the United States, right on down, but they're all aware of who we are, and they're all aware that what we're doing is legal, perfectly legal, and all aware that the chickens are going to come home to roost eventually because they can't. We're just laying the groundwork. The paper trail is there. And when we go to court and they're trying to keep us out of court, we'll win.
Okay, do you think what's going on now? Do you think what's going on now in the United States? The United States government is looks horrible. Do you think it's a process of they just have the might, the military that can be used against us? Because many of the United States governments, many of their tactics and the way they apply law and use law is totally twisted. Do you think now is the time? I mean, for people to know themselves, and here's why. You know, and African Americans ain't Africans. What I'm just trying to put out information like you're giving, and what I'm really seeing is that the people, I mean, a lot of the people want to know. I would say about 40% they want to know. They go search their families and stuff, but the other 60% are just stuck on that dumb shit. They can't, I'm melanated, I'm black, I'm blah 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 blah. And what I'm finding is that just causes confusion. They just can't go to their families. They can't get to their family because of them roadblocks that they can't let go of. Could you talk on that and how that can be alleviated?
So, Mr. Davis, I think the main thing to keep in mind, and sir, every once in a while I'll do a quick little informational video, and I appreciate the Sagamore and the founding council for allowing me to do them. Just to clarify things, what we have to understand is at any point when we're dealing with this system, we're dealing with them commercially. So you can be melanated, you can be black, you can be a diva, whatever you want. But what does that mean when you get into court or deal with a law enforcement officer? What is the definition of what you're calling yourself? So you can call yourself black, you can call yourself melanated, but what does it mean when you stand in front of a judge and say, oh, I'm melanated? And it doesn't mean that you're aboriginal to these lands. So as soon as you make a claim and confirm with them what your claim is, be it black, be it African, whatever you want, you get classified immediately. If you're classified as anything other than being indigenous to this land, then yeah, you're gonna have to worry about that might of that federal military and all that because you're subject to it. By law, they have the right, whether we think it's moral, ethical. The best piece of advice I got was from a woman by the name of Antoinette Pickens, a Jamaican sister, much respect to her. She said, the law is neither right or wrong, it's simply the law. So when we spend our time spinning our wheels talking about that's not right, we're not understanding, no, it's not, but it's the law. So how do we operate in this law? So it was not right that they came and took our lands. It's not right that they misclassified us to Negro, to black, to all of these traits. It's not right that they did that, but they did it. So now how do we come out of it? And you cannot come out of it calling yourself black. You cannot come out of it calling yourself African American. You cannot come out of it calling yourself colored. You cannot come out of it calling yourself anything other than what they were calling you at the engage with your people. Because anything after that is something they made up for you. And if you call yourself it, then you're admitting to them that I am whatever you made up for me. I'm colonized. I'm part of whatever you created. This is why we consistently say you need to go back and find yourself in advance of that so you can argue, no, actually, I'm not a part of that. That's what you tried to make me. So for everyone who's stuck on that, I mean, you're going to be that. You can be that. You can be whatever you want in life. If you want to be a black colored person from Africa, America, you can very well go and be that. But I think we've been seeing since this country started how those people get treated, how people claiming that treated, and how there's no justice and there's no righteousness and there's no ethics and there's no morality. None of it. None of it's there because the law says if you're classified as that, then this is how you can get treated. So if you want to change the law, that's fine, but you first have to be in a position to change it. And most of us aren't because we don't want to recognize that this is a commercial system. We want to go off of history. We want to go off of our emotions. We want to go off of our personal experiences and what we went through. And none of that matters when you get into a court in front of a judge and use the wrong word that's defined differently. None of that matters when you talk to a law enforcement officer and he labels you a black or an African American or a Latino or whatever he's labeling you that does not show you having a tie to this land. None of your feelings matter. None of the history matters. None of the right or wrong often matters. It's just what the law says and how they can manipulate it. So to those people who want to stay with those stumbling blocks, you know, best of luck to you. I can tell you, and Sagamore, he can tell you what a world of a difference it is when you know who you are and you've gone through that proper process. Once that happens, it's like a light switch goes on. Literally, we're still amazed at it. Like, I came to visit the Sagamore. He lives in one of the suburbs called Barrington. When I was a teen, I would never come to Barrington. Never. I was going to get pulled over. I was going to be the black kid. I was going to get the, what are you doing out here? I'm not even concerned about that anymore. But my first question when an officer pulls me over is, did you run my plate? And when he says, yeah, I'm going to say, so what, do you have, did you get some special jurisdiction or something? And it's a whole different conversation, but that's not even what they want to have. So they don't bother me anymore. Why even bother? He knows who he is. Everything's in order. There's no question about it. And they're learning every day. So I really don't want to lean. I really don't want to tort. It's not even worth it. For me, just wanting to harass him, it's just not worth it. You can be colored. You can be African American. You can be all of that. This is quote unquote America, right? You can be what you be. But don't complain when you're that. That's what we're saying. If that's what you want to be, you've been seeing what's going on with it. Ain't nothing changed in 3 or 4 generations. You can keep rolling with the same thing if you want. Even the copper colored, it's still a color. When people call it, we're the copper colored nation, what's the difference in you saying you're the black nation? Other than that, just saying color.
Yo, Two Hawks, tag me in, man. Tag me in. Tag me in. Like you tag me in, yo. Can I get in?
Yeah, we don't got no problem with it. Mr. Davis don't got an issue with it.
First of all, yeah, this Tomahawk right here, Tomahawk Tony. Hey, I appreciate y'all. I appreciate everyone that's watching right now. Yo, hands down. I hope I sound clear right now. I hope I sound clear. I just want to say that, yo, thank you for everything that you're saying. Everything that you just shared, your experience. You know, the people need to hear it. There's many people saying what you're saying. There's not too many people telling the truth of our people's true experiences. You know what I'm saying? Now, in regards to the Sagamore, I would like to hear more for the Sagamore about, like, you know, where he was, you know, because the Sagamore is an elder right now, right?
Yeah, I'm closer to 80 than I am to 70. Yes.
Okay, all right. But I'm saying, when you was,
they won't ever retire.
Okay, Sagamore. When you was, let's say, 14, 15 years old, right?
Yes.
What did you remember from your elders who was like 70, 80 years old? Because, like, that's what it's about. Like, our A4 peoples need to hear that. You know what I'm saying? Like, they're connected from the elders. You feel me? And like via A4, you know what I'm saying? Like, you know, we try to connect the youth to the elders, and we try to maintain a continuity of communication between the generations and all of that. And like, your presence is like so valued right now to so many people, man. Like, me personally, I don't have a relationship with my grandfather. I have one grandfather from 2 lineages. All right, like one lineage, he's gone. Lineage, I don't have him present. So I deal with one grandfather, and he's not even making himself available. And so, therefore, like, I mean, like, your presence is so valuable. And I'm just speaking for so many other.
I want to tell you something. I really did not come up in the Indian culture because I lived in the city. I was a city slicker. Okay, and I'm just going to tell you something, just to go along with what Two Hawks told you. This is something that we give each one of our tribal members, and this is what we tell them to tell people. I am an American Aborigine, more commonly referred to as an American Indian, foreign national, Aboriginal resident inhabitant of the United States.
Aboriginal inhabitant.
An Aboriginal inhabitant of the United States of America de jure, tribal citizen of the Pokanoket Nation, and I am not a federally recognized Native American. Now, what I want to tell you is, I sat and I listened to my people talk, my aunts, my uncles, but I really wasn't in the environment like my sisters and my brothers. And it's strange because as I grew older and was on the council as treasurer, the elders wanted me to be chief. Now, I never wanted to be chief. And this is something, some of my first cousins were old enough to be my parent, all right? But the talk was always in our family about, our family. We knew from the time that we were, toddlers. It was drilled in our heads and made crystal clear. All my first cousins, we knew who we were. And the people in the state knew who we were, and the God, But I never aspired to be the chief. So my brother always told the story that, he's older than me, and he's the powers of the nation. And he'll ask when we're out talking, do you have any younger brothers? And kids will raise their hands, and he'll say, well, you better be careful how you treat them because they may grow up to be the chief one day. So I just want you to know that even in this walk that we are walking now, we've been purposed to do this here. We didn't just happen to come together. It was ordained by the Creator. Okay. And so a lot of things that we do are spiritual, and we get a lot of spiritual guidance. And so that we know that our Creator is watching over what we're doing. And we are very much in tune to, each other. All right. So that we watch each other's backs, and we work as a cohesive. And these guys that are in fauna, Ray is the director general, and Nikot, I believe you talked with him last week. He's the director of commerce. I'm the superior chief, but these guys are younger than me. They won't let me retire, but they are crack. I mean, they are very good at what they do, researching, so forth and so on. I give a lot of history. I know a lot of history because I heard it all my life, and I can go up both sides of my families. As far as, our nation went all the way down to Cape Cod, Martha's Vineyard Island, Elizabeth Island, went all the way up to New York State, Scattercook Falls, this side of the Hudson River, and southern Vermont and southern New Hampshire. I just was in touch with, I wasn't, my wife was in touch with one of my relatives who was the chief of the Scattercook tribe up there. And I didn't realize, I knew I met him at the United Nations, so I'm still learning. I met him at the United Nations 2 years ago, and he called my great-grandfather Uncle Phillip. And I was saying, gee, I've got to get back to this guy to find out what the connection is. Well, I found out he's from the Simons family, but I didn't know him. He's a lot younger than me. So, there's some research that I could be doing. So I've become a little slothful because I know a lot about my people. I know, how we got up, how our territory went all the way up to New York, because the Massasoit was known as the leader of the Nipmuc Nation, the Quabog Nipmuc Nation. And he was married to the queen of the Nipmucs. And so that's who King Phillip and Warm Sutter, his brother, and my auntie Oni and Amy and the Sakanuku, the brothers and sisters were all, they were Nipmuc too. So this United States government will tell you can only belong to one tribe, but that's not the way it was. That's if you become federally recognized. These Indians here married chief's son, married the chief's daughter. They married royalty. Of course, we know royalty wasn't a term that we use, but it was something that was recognizable in the English culture, and that's why they called us royalty, because they knew that these people had a higher status than just there was a caste system, I guess, in the Indian culture. So basically, I'm not, what I've heard is a lot of stories about who you were, and, how you connected this line. And my parents would be sitting down with their brothers and sisters every weekend they met, and they talk about story I always remember as a kid is that Indian in the boat crossing the Delaware with George Washington. That's your great grandfather, Simeon Simons. See, and so when I look at that, any picture of that George Washington crossing the Delaware, there's only one Indian in the boat. He has a hand servant there who was probably African. He was probably from the Caribbean, because most of the slaves that first came here were from the Caribbean. And so basically, these are the things that I heard as a kid coming up. And, I can tell you that I am the first male chief from King Phillip's line since he was killed in 1676. We had all female chiefs because no one was going to say they were Pokanoket. And when I came up in the 40s as a kid, you didn't go around talking about being Pokanoket. My parents didn't say they said they were Wampanoag. They wouldn't say they were Pokanoket. And Pokanoket is the headship tribe of that nation. So when you see Metacom with the Po in front of that prefix Po means of Pokanoket. Even what he's talking about where I live, this was our ancestral realm, Solons. And this was where the tribe was located. So I come back to where my roots were. I never aspired to live in Barrington, very upscale community, but that's creative moving me closer to where we're moving. And basically, we've done things, we've set the wheels in motion, and I know that these things are going to come back to us, because the Creator is going to put the American Indian in his rightful place once again, his place of honor, and that's where we're going. Did I lose you? Huh?
Mr. Davis, you there?
I don't know. We might have lost him.
No, I think he'll click back in.
Oh, okay. All right.
Yeah, one of the things that I want to that a lot of people really don't know is the history of going on in America, especially in the Northeast. Could you tell us about the King Phillip War and what was that about?
Well, the King Phillip War, the Northeast, when we talk about the Northeast, we're really talking about New England. That was old England over there. This is New England. All the towns here, they're named after the towns in England. Bristol, Rhode Island, Barrington. You got a Bristol, Rhode Island. You got a Bristol over there in England. It's the same. They did it all over this here. But where we come from, this area was the most densely populated area of the New World. And so basically, the Pilgrims that came here, and I'm trying to think of the other groups, what they were called. I'm having one of these senior moments. But anyway, it was overland. They got greedy for the land, and they just took things from us, and they just took and committed genocide on our people. I mean, mass murders for no reason other than that we were Indians, and they thought that the Indians were heathen. The English thought the Greeks were heathen. There's a story of my family about how Philip and Wamsutta, his brother, Metacom and Wamsutta got their English names. They petitioned the court the English names after their father died, and of course the courts gave them Greek names. And the reason why they gave them Greek names is because they thought the Greeks were heathen, and they thought the Indians were heathen. So they got Philip of Macedonia and Alexander the Great. And so Wamsutta was named Alexander, and Metacomet was named Philip. So I mean, these are the things that that happen here up here. There's an episode where an individual just took and shot like 300 Indians at one time, and made the statement, and these are in books, that I put them heathen to hell. You know, and you know, I think that they're going to have to answer. If they believe there's a God, then they're going to have to take an answer to a higher authority.
Did you tell them how many times in the were burned down?
Well, during the King Phillip War, it was the most costly war on American soil to this day. And King Phillip burnt, I think it was 15 towns to the ground. And basically, the war lasted from June of 1675 until August of 1676, when he was killed. And he was killed right here in Solms. And he was betrayed. He was betrayed by his own people. And if what happened to us as a people would have happened today, the world would be outraged, because they just took and they just committed mass genocide on our people.
So the King Phillip War is basically still going on today.
Oh yeah, it was the start of the whole thing.
Mm-hmm.
And if I could, it's a large part of the reason why there was such misclassification, because after the war, they literally just took the land. One of the things they would do was a twig and turf ceremony. So they're gonna, you know, they're gonna come to your house, they're gonna beat on you, kill off half your family, ship the other half that survived off into slavery, and then they're gonna throw you on a reservation. Then they're gonna call in all their friends and all of their big wigs, and they're gonna go to your land. They're gonna break a twig off of a tree from your land. They're gonna pick up a clod of dirt from your land. They're gonna pass it to one of their friends and say, "We just transferred this over to you." So that's how most of the land in New England got transferred, and that's not legal. You have to have some sort of document or agreement saying this land is yours, and we died fighting, or got shipped into slavery or put on the reservation. So what do you do after you subjugated these people, and then you've broken away from Britain, but you realize, hey, wait a minute, Britain was signing treaties with these people, and they're still around. We didn't extinct them all, and they're still here. Well, they're all from Africa. And you know, yeah, we brought you all here as slaves. And just to add a little bit to that, my people that are against it, we eventually got into the war, but we didn't get into it, in my opinion, early enough. We were capping, and that was the real issue up here. The reason, one of the main reasons they were able to get such a strong foothold is because we were too busy arguing and fighting amongst each other. So this side would sign a treaty with the English because the English promised to give them guns because they wanted to go and fight with the Indians over there. So now they get the guns, and now they're fighting, and now the English are letting them shoot each other, and then the English step in after because you guys just massacred each other. So now, since you guys can't control it, we'll step in and control it. And it was a very slow and deliberate process that eventually led to the King Philip's War. And once we lost the war, that was pretty much it. You people don't even exist anymore.
Yeah, they were never declared war.
There you go. And now we're realizing, okay, well, you know, they broke the laws back there. What do? We'll devise another scheme. We'll just tell everyone you're from Africa. And that's what they did to my tribe in 1881, while my grandfather, my fourth great grandfather, was one of the big chiefs for the tribe. The state simply said, you guys aren't Indians anymore. You're mixed with too much African blood. There's too many Africans, and as the Sagamore said, a lot of those people could have simply been from the Caribbean. But there's too much African blood in you, and you guys aren't Indians anymore, so we, the state, are going to detribalize you. And of course, states can't do that. That's something that has to go to the feds if you want to even agree that the Fed can detribalize someone. So the state just blatantly did it, disregarded the law, said we were Africans, and then once the gig was up and my people found out, they went and duped us again by saying, all right, well, we'll federally recognize you then. So we went out of being misclassified to being federally recognized. The problem with them is that we understand the history. So I understand that, well, yeah, you did that for a grouping of the family down in South County region, but I'm in the Northern Territories, and you know, since 1643, Columbia and Soconomico broke away from the Southern Territories and never came back underneath them. So that really has nothing to do with the Northern Territories. Now, the only reason I can say that is to the point that the Sagamore made a few times. to the point that she first been made last week, and to the point that I've been making continually, I only can say that because I know who I am and I know what happened to me. Because if I was just saying I was an Narragansett, well, they're gonna argue, oh, well, you guys gave it, but no, I have to go even more deeper than that and say, no, I'm from Meshiquah. That's in the Northern Territory. That was on the Permian, Sokononoco, and Guantes. And no. We that has nothing to do with us. This is what our story is up here. Right. And now there's nothing that they can say.
They wrote about it.
They wrote about it. They were the ones. They were excited and arrogant. They had killed off the heathens, and we vanquished them. They use words like that. We vanquished them. You know, we bloodied them. We killed them. We sent them off into slavery, and we took their land, and because they don't deserve it.
And they beheaded us. They beheaded our chiefs. As they caught our chiefs, they beheaded them and displayed. My grandfather, King Phillip, head was displayed on a pole in Plymouth, Massachusetts for 25 years. When his wife and his son was taken over to Bermuda, they had his son look at his father's head, told him, if you come back here, this is what's going to happen to you. Well, he did come back. All right. And so basically, it's really worse than what you read. If they wrote about that, and that's recorded history, imagine what they didn't write about. Well, that's what you're facing when you talk about, you know, what they did to the Indians in this country, man. So how do you lose a country? You know, you can talk about Africa; they still have their country over there. The Indians in this country being treated like third, fourth class citizens. Any when it comes into this country, are treated better than American Indians. You know, they according to the treaties, we still own the oil rights, the air rights, the water rights, the mineral rights. And the United States government was supposed to be a fiduciary for our wealth, and they haven't awarded us anything. And then they're asking, well, why are they building the casinos? Well, because you won't pay us what you're supposed to be paying us. In other words, they got these telephone lines and these electric lines going through tribal territory. We're supposed to get paid for that, not the towns. You know what I'm saying? And basically, they haven't done that. And so they know that we're coming after them for these things. And basically, we're laying the paper trail. We're doing what we have to do. We're repatriating our people back to our tribe, back to our nation, and we're doing all the necessary steps that we need to take to rule our own people, to rule ourselves. We can govern ourselves. We don't need the United States government to govern us, and they need to take and pay restitution for the land that they took for us. So these are the things that we have in motion here in this Northeast corridor. Okay, and the same thing could be going down there in Virginia, because if you stop and think about it, the first colonized community was in Jamestown, Virginia, and that's the area where Nicot was talking to you about, the Kisiak, that nation there, Powhatan. Powhatan is a title just like Massasoit. Massasoit meant great leader. He's the chief of all the chiefs up here. And so that they fought the English longer than we did, 13 years. Okay, but they didn't try to wipe out all of their families. The Poconokas, they hated Phillip because he burnt 15 towns to the ground. Like I said, it's the most costly war in the history of this country on American soil. So that's a little bit of the history of our people.
So what I'm noticing is, and what I'm seeing is that we have a whole bunch of confusion. I mean, the confusion is nonstop. And with us fighting amongst ourselves, it makes it easier for the colonists to get what they want. Could you speak on that?
Oh, I mean, listen, I've like I say, I'm closer to 80 than I am to 70. I've watched every race or nationality has come into this country, and the Italians, they reach back and they help those who are coming in behind them. The Irish have done it. The Indians won't do it. The Indians get better recognition. They can take these tribes that are not recognized under their wing, if they want to become fairly recognized, under their umbrella, but they won't do it. The first thing they'll holler, if they see you getting one little thing, is they're not fairly recognized. Well, we don't want to be federally recognized. We do not want to be under the jurisdiction of the United States government. We can govern ourselves. And the first thing that they do, the United States government does with these tribes, is they put land in trust with them. Well, we put the land in trust for ourselves because basically we were here first, and so we have a superior title. And the other thing which I noticed is that the Latin language, they don't use that anymore as much as when I was a kid coming up. Latin was primarily the language you learned. Well, a lot of your laws are in Latin, different terms that they're in Latin. Today, when I went to school, it was Latin, French, and then Spanish came along. Once in a while, someone will take German. They don't even teach Latin anymore, I don't think. It's not a predominant. They're talking about Chinese language, but the laws are all in Latin, even today. And so some of the terms, I mean, Ray, he's a lot younger than me. He remembers these terms, but we read, we're reading about all of this stuff, and they're still using these terms today. So, and the other thing they don't teach a lot about is trust laws. They don't teach anything about trust laws, and this is what this country was built on. And so this is what we're doing. One of the first things we've done is put a public and constructive notice up and reclaim all of our land. Gave them 90 days to rebut it. 30 days to rebut it. We sent it to the Director of Intergovernmental and Tribal Affairs from the Department of Energy, which is over the Department of the Interior, which is over the BIA. And so, I mean, we've done our homework. We're taking all the right steps, and if we're trying to get them into court.
Yeah, we want to go to court with them. They won't. They're terrified.
They won't engage.
What information could you give the people that's down in the Southeast corridor, in the Midwest and out West? What are some of the tactics they can use, or some of the ideas that they could use to get closer to their families that they've been tied away from?
I think
because what I'm noticing, is we're really not into that reading. We're really not, as a group. We do very little reading, and aside from reading, we do very little comprehending.
Yeah.
So, and I'm just talking about the reality of what's going on in the present time today.
Yes.
We're being wiped out. And most of the time we're being wiped out because we're just plain ignorant about what's going on. Some of the things you speak on, like I talked about earlier, we calling ourselves black, all this stuff, and we don't have a direct line to who our people are. So could you hit on that and hit on some of the ways that they can make that possible so they will be no longer stuck?
So I think we had mentioned, Econ mentioned it as well. I highly recommend just an Ancestry.com account. And I mentioned this brother last week. I forgot to mention this story. Talking to the brother, and he's talking to his mother, and it became a very emotional conversation because I believe she had actually been adopted. So she never knew who her family was. And by getting this Ancestry.com account, he was able to find her birth certificate because, you get the birth certificate and then they got him adopted. And the father's name and the mother's name were on the birth certificate. Mm-hmm. So then he was able to find those names and then trace himself back to his tribe. Now, if we're just looking without an ancestry account and don't have any background information or names to plug in, then it seems like that's the end of the trail. So we suggest just getting an ancestry account. Also, searching local records. Mm-hmm. So the census is fine, the federal stuff's fine, but as the Sagamore said, as Nicot said last week, going into the towns where your people were from and checking the records that they keep there. So what are the land records there? What are the birth records? I did a little video. I said even arrest records. Also checking who the family names were that were known as Indians. That also works as well. Also, we suggest cross-referencing with families because you have the situation like, let's take the Nipmucks, for example. There's 2 tribes of Nipmucks. Well, that are known. There's several different tribes. Wabaquasha just came on with us. But you have Hassan Amisco and Chungabungama. These two tribes came from two brothers who were all the way full-blood brothers, but one brother married a indigenous woman and the other brother married a white woman. If you look at those two tribes today, one looks like a bunch of white people and the other one looks like a bunch of us. But when you do their genealogy, they're all from them same people. So we have to even get past the look. And we have to strictly stick to what these bloodlines are.
Right.
Because a lot of our people, like the Sagamore's grandfather, would get up out of down south and come up north and then pass for white. If you knew the family, then you would know, hey, they're Indians. But if they were just light-skinned and they were up here around Irish and Italians and they're not looking like the English white anyway, so they're just lumping them in with them, then you have a lot of Indians who might be down on records as white. So you need to cross-reference. If you see someone that's Indian, or if you, like the Sagamore said, you see colored, you see mulatto, cross-reference other family members. What were their family members put down on documents as? Go back a few records, because in some census records, you'll see someone labeled black. Before that, you might see them labeled mulatto. And then if you go back maybe a generation or two before that, their grandmother's an Indian.
And then the other thing you need to look for is, were they free men?
Freemen.
If they're free men, that means they were Indian. They were free otherwise.
There you go.
And the other source, a good source, is the Mormon Church. They have a lot of records of Indians.
There's all of these places out there that know exactly who we are because their livelihood is banked on us remaining ignorant about who we are. And this is the other thing I want to share too, Mr. Davis. We have to understand, like I was saying earlier, this is a commercial system we're in. Now think about this. We're taught when we go to in court, right? You're innocent until proven guilty, right? That's what we're taught. It always amazed me. I could never understand why in Britain they were guilty until proven innocent. I could never understand it till I realized it's all a commercial claim. So if you think about it, a commercial claim, a credit card company sends you a bill, says you owe them $500. If you don't write them back the proper way to show that you don't owe that $500, you owe them $500. So when they said that we were Negroes, when they said that we were blacks, colored, because we never went down on record saying, no, I'm not, we were. We have to get out of this mentality of civil rights, where we're entitled to certain, when we're not entitled to nothing, you have to stake your claim and hold it.
Right.
So all of these titles that they gave, keep searching. Understand that if your people were Indians, then they were doing everything and anything to keep from calling them Indians. So yes, they're going to call them free inhabitants. Nika just found some documents where when it said race, they just put a 0 down because they didn't want to mark them down as Indians. Mulattoes, colored, any of these things are going to show you that there was a chance that your people were Indians because they did not want to put them down on record as being that. Check into the church records. They were burning down a lot of churches because the churches had records in them.
Which happened in our church.
So that's why there was all of those church burning going on at a certain point, because they knew, they caught on to the fact that, hey, wait a minute. This is where the Indians are keeping their records at. This is where they're meeting at. This is where they're strategizing at. So then you see the infiltration of the churches. And now if you look in a lot of the churches, and I know that that's why a lot of people are upset with the churches, there's a lot of buffoonery going on. Because it's been infiltrated. A lot of the AME churches were started off as Indian churches. A lot of the Methodist churches and the Baptist churches were started off as Indian churches. Whatever the prevailing religion was in that region, that's the type of church they would create. Because now we're in this church, they're going to say, okay, they're assimilating. And our people weren't stupid. They weren't just doing things to do them. They weren't just doing things because they were afraid. Even in the midst of all of this colonization that was going on, our people were still striving to be the respectful and the prideful people that we've always been. After having our names taken away from us, land stripped away from us, language stripped away from us, our people were still fighting the best way that they knew how to make sure that we could be here sitting today having this conversation. So we have to honor that.
That's right.
And we can't be expecting an easy sort of.
We didn't break any of those treaties.
No, we didn't break any of them.
They broke over 900 of them.
And then they know they broke it, so they misclassified you. So when you go, even now, when you say, well, I'm an Indian, you're still not in the proper status to engage in treaties, right? Because you're not coming at them at a nation-to-nation level, which means you're not operating through trust. So even if you're all the way right that that's who you are, you're not going to trust. So you have no standing. So all of these little games they played, and we have to understand, you can't fix any of it. I don't care what you think you know. I don't care what laws you cannot fix any of it until you know and have substantiated who you are, because the rights are not for you until you show that. By law, remember, it's not right, it's not wrong, it's just the law. Until you substantiate who you are, it does not matter what the history says. We're not in a historical system, we're in a legal system that's commercial. They made claims, we haven't rebutted it correctly, and then it's like a maze. They made all of these processes and all of these ways you have to figure out to come up out of it. But if you can figure it out, you can come up out of it. And the beautiful thing, the beautiful thing is once you come up out of it, they start to realize, wait a minute.
They done figured it out.
But not only that, we trapped ourselves in it. They figured the way out, and we created all these laws trying to keep them in it that we both in. We can't now deny they can't tell us we're not Indians, not taxed, because that's in your Constitution. So unless you're going to unravel your Constitution, which means unraveling your whole right to be here, we're Indians, not taxed. Like the Sagamore said, we use their laws to get our rights. I'm not saying I'm a human being. I think we all know what that legal definition is. We're saying you all said we have human rights. We didn't say this. You all wrote it down. So if you all wrote it down, you have to honor what you wrote down. You guys wrote it. We agree with you. If you say we have human rights, we'll exercise our human rights.
No, don't engage.
You know, and if you're saying we don't, well, then you're saying your own laws don't exist. And remember, whether you think it's right or wrong, the way we're utilizing your laws, it really doesn't matter. The laws aren't right or wrong. They're just the laws. So same argument that they've been using on us. Ignorance of the law is never an excuse. You should know these. That's the same conversations we have with them. Oh, well, it's unfortunate that you didn't realize that that was a human rights violation. That's unfortunate. But as you know, ignorance of the law is never an excuse. And here's this filing we just did on you. You know, here's this constructive and public notice. I've been backing down a foreclosure on my home for 2 years now, 2.5 years now. I haven't paid anything in 2.5 years because they cannot, the tribe issued an aboriginal land deed for it. And they were doing all of that craziness with the titles and all of that. So the tribe said, we want to see the original title.
They can't produce it.
They can't produce it. And we said, and until you can produce an original title, we're not contracting with you for taxation on the land. So no one better collect anything on it. And I'm a beneficiary of the tribe. So I said, well, you see what the tribe said. I'm not paying anything. And we haven't paid anything. And they were sending like constables by, and I'm explaining everything to the constable, and the constables are turning and say, oh yeah, it makes sense. So it just got to the point where they were just sending, like, hiring people to come and take pictures. So I just threw a flag on the front of the house and put postings up. No one's been back since. I gave them constructive notice. So the same laws that they've been using to subjugate us are the same laws that we can use to hold them in their place, but not until you know who you are. Until you know who you are and documented it and showed it and substantiated it, you're just another U.S. citizen that, regardless of what you're saying, you're still classified as a black or a Negro or an African American, and you just better shut up or we put you in the bottom of this cell. And as a matter of fact, we're gonna put you there because you know too much. You don't know enough, but you know too much. And if you start yapping and talking to the rest of these people out here, they might figure something out. So let's just get rid of you. Let's call you a black identity extremist. Let's do all of these craziness that we see going on to our people because we're getting ready to let the cat out of the bag, and they don't want that going on. And I'm done rambling. I'll turn it back to Zach.
Just an interesting little story I want to tell you here. When we first applied for health care, and we actually had to walk them through the process, their supervisors. And we told them what would happen. And basically what happened is once we fed in the information, no social security number, we don't use a social, we use tribal IDs, the whole screen changed after we put that in there, and the screen changed and recognized us as capital C citizens. All right, that's what we come under Article 3. So capital C citizens, there are some capital C citizens that are not Indians in this country. The heirs like a George Washington, and there are people that have that status. But American Aborigines that are not federally recognized come under Article 3, capital C citizens. They turned around and they changed some of the laws, and they said that they didn't, of course. But we have people that work in the health department and told us, yeah, they changed this here and they changed that, so forth and so on. And so basically, that doesn't happen on the street anymore. But they were so shocked to see that when we were telling them we're capital C citizens. That's what we are. We come under Article 3, and that's a whole new thing. You have to read that Constitution. You'd be amazed at how the provisions are in there for the American Aborigine. And they talk about them all the time. And even in these health laws, they'll start off. A lot of times you have to get to near the end of the document. But in these health laws, they start right off talking about the American Aborigine or American Indian. They talk about the Alaskan Native, and then they talk about the Native American. So they know that we know, all right? And so this is what you need to know. You need to know what your proper status is. And once you take and discover who you are and you put yourself in your proper status, the game is up. I think I'm done. Gee, we've been out here more than an hour. Sir. He must be.
Yeah, I think there's probably some.
Yeah. What are people asking?
Yo, y'all hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you. Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay, very good.
Hey, what's going on? How y'all doing?
Doing fine. What's going on, Tomahawk?
Hey, man. Yo, I'm just feeling the energy of the people right now, man. Like, so much confusion amongst the people. Hey, I appreciate y'all for providing this clarity, providing y'all, sharing y'all experience. You know what I mean? Because like more people need, in my opinion, more people need to see the experience of those that got it. You know what I'm saying? And this is the work that needs to be done. Like too many people is too much TV watching and too much what somebody else is doing versus what knowing what needs to be done. And rather, let me correct that, and being engaged in what needs to be done. Too many people do not know how to engage in real work. They know how to work for foreigners. They don't know how to work for their own people. And that's an issue from what I'm seeing.
Major problem.
So I just want to say I appreciate y'all. You know what I'm saying? And I want to encourage the people to pay attention. Listen to what you all are saying. I want the people to listen to you. It's time your energy, your being is valued. Like, I mean, seriously, in my opinion, how I feel, like I'm grateful hearing y'all. I'm grateful to have this experience in which you was extended to both me, to Buck, to A4, the audience, etc. But like, yo, man, it's so much confusion going on, and we need so many more people to be involved in regards to doing their own research, to be cared about themselves and their own people, the same way y'all care about each other. The same, I mean, yo, y'all show a love to the people. Y'all are literally demonstrating to the people how y'all value each other. Like y'all sitting together and y'all together doing it. Sharing quality information, and then we got people by themselves via social media engaged in nonsense and rhetoric.
Mm-hmm. What I do?
Like, I just want to encourage the people to pay attention, and I appreciate y'all for y'all presence. You know what I'm saying?
Thank you.
Okay, Chief Sagamore, could you give a people a way if they want to learn more, if they want to learn some of the tricks of the trade from you, how would they get in contact with you?
Well, I'm gonna let Two Hawk has a better memory than me, but he has an address and everything.
Yeah, Mr. Davis, same as usual, info@faunaamerica.com, or shoot a message over to the Federation of Aboriginal Nations of America Facebook page, and we make sure it gets to whatever chief is being directed to.
Okay, Chief Sagamore, we're coming to the close now, but is there any way? And like I'm saying, the group that I have, I'm just putting it out there because people don't. I mean, it's not so much that they don't know; they don't want to know. You know, you tell them that they're not African, they want to cut your head off because they believe. You know, what I'm seeing is the people who call themselves African Americans are trained much like animals. Somebody tells them something, and that's what they go on. They do very little thinking. They don't ask questions. So, what could you say to them to get them out of that trick bag?
Same old thing. They need to research and find out who they are, man, because once they find out who they are, then they'll know what their purpose is, you know. But they got to do the research. It comes down to doing the research. They got to kind of get out of that complacency and get out there and do the research. And, you know, I can speak about being complacent because, like I said, I just met people in my family just a couple of years ago that I didn't realize existed. And the man's a chief because we come from the chief's line, you know. And so basically, you got to do the research. But I've always known who I was, which made me a little bit complacent, you know, and slothful. So basically, that's the bottom line. You gotta research it, and you know, the information is out there. You may be able to just go back so far, but I'm sure that you'll be well rewarded in what you find. If Nikot can do what he did, believe me, he didn't know anything. All he knew was that his grandfather did things, and he didn't know what the rituals were, but he knew they weren't, you know, they weren't African rituals, and it got him hungry and you know, to research, you know, what he was doing or why he was doing it, and he's come up, you know, he's been well rewarded for it. You know, you got to know who you are though in this life, because this government believes that all the Indians are dead. All right.
Oh, they all look like they're from out west.
Right. And we don't all look like we're from out west. All right. Even the Mayflower Society has said that about, you know, the Pocahontas.
Well, Chief Sagamore, I want to tell you thank you very much, you know, for sharing with the group tonight. And I hope I hope you guys got it. I hope some of you guys picked up what the brother was saying. Find out who your people are. Just ask your mothers, your grandmothers, ask your aunts, your mother's older brother and sisters. Go down to these archives, check these ancestry.com, check these old primitive churches. The information is out there. Your people left an imprint on this planet, and that imprint is you. Find out, the least you can do is find out who they were, since they brought you forward. Trying to hide up under all these foreign identities is not helping in the least bit. And you can see what they're doing to the people called Moors, African American, Hebrew Israelites. All these people trying to come under these foreign ideologies is not helping the situation at all.
Nope.
So Chief Two Hawks, I want to say thank you. Chief Sagamore, I want to say thank you for joining us, for giving us some insight on what we need to be doing as a group of people so we can get our house in order.
Absolutely. Mr. Davis, as always, thank you for the platform. You as well, Tom Hawk. And if we can make it back again next week, I want to see if there's a potential to maybe have one of the women chief come and speak, because I know we've had a lot of males.
Yes,
and we want to make sure that people understand that a chief is a chief. It's not about your gender, it's about your ability to do the job. There you go. Yeah, there was a tons of women chief up here in the Northeast, and there's a number of them around right now. So we want to show that aspect as well. So if I can, I'm going to see if I can get one of the women chief to come and just have the same thing that we've been doing, so that people can ask questions and just get to know a little bit more about the history and the culture.
Okay.
That'll be great.
All right. Thank you for having us. And as we say in our language, Aquani, peace.
Aquani.
Okay, African American ain't African group. There you have it. You had these brothers up here. They're helping. They're willing to share their time and help you out. So listen to this over again and see what these brothers are talking about, because they come in with it. They giving you simple information. It's like reading directions off of a cereal box.
Mhm.
So check out what these brothers are saying and check your families out. Check out where they live. Check out what they did. If you see some old pictures of what they did, they probably had some of the things that they did in the pictures, you know, kind of the work that they did. So check your family out. Check out where they live, because they probably didn't live in none of the big cities. They probably, you was hearing the brothers talk about cities that you really don't hear of, where their people live. Check those cities out. But the information is out there. And I implore you all, please find your families. This has been another edition of African Americans Ain't Africans. And hey, we'll see you next week. You guys have a good weekend. Peace.
Have a good night.
Good night. Okay. Is that what you do? Log out. You know,